Welcome back. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a like. Enjoy the video. Thinking you're invincible only to confront someone skilled in dismantling the very system you depend on. That's precisely what occurred when Alicia Parker resolved to take justice into her own hands. The sun was dipping below the horizon over Alicia Parker's peaceful suburban street as she pulled into her driveway, feeling the fulfilling weight of a day well spent at the local community center. She'd been mentoring at-risk youth, young individuals who required someone to remind them that their dreams mattered, no matter how much the world tried to diminish them. Her house, a modest yet proud home she had rebuilt from the ground up, felt like a representation of that same resilience. It wasn't flawless, but it was hers. A sanctuary carved out of years of hard work and dedication. She stepped out of her SUV, her keys jingling in her hand, when something caught her attention down the street. A group of teenagers leaned against the lamppost, their laughter loud and jagged, as if they were sharing a joke at someone else's expense. Alicia recognized the look, boredom mixed with just enough recklessness to spiral into trouble. Her instincts flickered, but she shook her head. Not tonight. Inside, the house greeted her with familiar silence. Alicia set down her bag, allowing herself a moment to breathe, to let the day's tension dissolve. But the tranquility didn't last. A sudden, thunderous crash shattered it like glass. Her heart raced as she hurried to the window, and what she saw hit her like a punch to the gut. Her front yard was a battlefield. Spray-painted slurs dripped across her walls, their neon colors almost mocking in the warm evening light. The flowers she'd spent weekends planting lay flattened, stomped into the dirt. Shards of glass sparkled from her broken windows, and in the midst of it all stood the teens from earlier, armed with spray cans, bricks, and a dangerous sense of entitlement. Alicia stepped outside, her face calm but her body tense like a coiled spring. Years of special forces training kicked in as she surveyed the scene. No yelling, no panic, just quiet control. "Why?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp. "Why would you do this?" The group hesitated, shifting uncomfortably, but one boy, the ringleader, stepped forward with a smirk that practically begged to be wiped off his face. "Because people like you don't belong here." Alicia stared at him, her jaw tightening. The words were a slap, but she didn't flinch. Before she could reply, the boy hurled a brick at her house, shattering another window. His friends followed suit, laughing as they added more destruction to their canvas of hate. The sound of approaching sirens finally sent them scattering into the night. Alicia stood in the wreckage, fists clenched. The damage to her home was severe, but it wasn't the bricks or graffiti that hurt the most. It was the message, the venom behind their actions. It was a reminder of the world she thought she'd left behind, a world where she had to fight twice as hard just to exist. The police arrived minutes later, but their response was as fractured as the glass on her porch. The officer in charge barely glanced at the graffiti before shrugging. "Kids being kids," he said, his tone casual as if he were discussing a harmless prank. "You should probably put up some cameras." Alicia's breath caught. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice tight. "Look, ma'am," the officer continued, clearly annoyed. "What do you want us to do? Arrest a bunch of teenagers? You're better off letting it go." "Let it go?" Alicia's voice sliced through the air. "They vandalized my home. They threatened me." The officer sighed, glancing at his notepad like he was already bored. "What do you expect us to do, ma'am?" Alicia stared at him, a storm brewing behind her composed gaze. She didn't argue or yell. She knew that look, the indifference, the dismissal. It wasn't the first time she'd encountered it, and it wouldn't be the last. As the patrol car drove away, Alicia stood on her porch, surveying the destruction one more time. She took a deep breath, her mind already calculating. She wasn't the type to back down, not when everything she stood for was at stake. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Morning sunlight filled Alicia's kitchen, but she barely noticed. She wasn't calling anyone for help or posting her frustrations online. That wasn't her approach. Alicia Parker believed in action, not words, and she wasn't about to let this attack go unanswered. In her garage, she opened a concealed compartment behind a wall panel. Inside was her former life. Tactical gear, surveillance equipment, encrypted tech, all neatly arranged. Her military instincts were as sharp as ever. If the system wouldn't protect her, she'd protect herself. Over the next few days, Alicia transformed her home into a fortress. Hidden cameras disguised as garden decorations covered her property. She spent hours monitoring her feeds, tracking the teens who had vandalized her house. They spent their nights at a nearby park, boasting about their exploits and plotting their next target. But Alicia discovered something far more disturbing. The kids weren't acting alone. Their leader, Travis Grayson, was a middle-aged man whose hatred festered like an infection. He wasn't just enabling them. He was using them as pawns in a much larger campaign of intimidation. One night, Alicia followed Travis to a meeting at an abandoned warehouse at midday. Hidden in the shadows, she recorded as he outlined plans for escalating attacks. His voice was a blend of venom and confidence, portraying himself as a savior to his followers. Alicia had encountered men like him before. Dangerous because they believed they were untouchable. Her footage was powerful evidence, but she knew it wouldn't be enough to compel the police into action. She needed to turn public outrage into a weapon. Sitting at her laptop, Alicia tapped into her skills. Within hours, she'd hacked into Travis's accounts, freezing his funds and exposing his donors. Then she leaked the meeting footage to the media. The fallout was immediate. News stations ran his name on repeat. Community leaders condemned him, and his followers began to scatter. But Travis wasn't one to back down. In fury, he went on the offensive, posting an online video vowing revenge. That night, the retaliation came. A Molotov cocktail struck Alicia's front door, flames licking at her home. But she'd prepared. Her reinforced doors and fire suppression system activated, extinguishing the fire before it could spread. Her cameras captured the attack, and within hours, the footage went viral. Public outrage grew louder, but Travis escalated further. In another video, his voice was steady and cold. "This isn't over," he said. "I'll finish what I started." Alicia watched the video in silence, her expression unreadable. She wasn't afraid. But she knew this fight wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone like her, and it wasn't finished yet. Alicia Parker wasn't about to wait for Travis Grayson to make the next move. She learned long ago that hesitation only gave the enemy an advantage. This wasn't about revenge. It was about ending the cycle of hate before it consumed anyone else. Standing in her living room, she methodically suited up in her tactical gear. The weight of her past felt lighter now because she was putting it to good use. As night fell, she tracked Travis to a remote warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was the perfect hideout for a man like him. Isolated, dilapidated, and crawling with loyal followers. Alicia didn't hesitate. Using her military expertise, she approached the building quietly, disabling cameras and slipping past guards like a shadow. Every movement was deliberate, every step calculated. Inside, Travis and his remaining crew were gathered around a table, their voices low but tense. Plans for their next act of terror were spread out in front of them, a chilling reminder of what they were capable of. Alicia observed from the rafters, her sharp eyes tracking every move. She could have waited for law enforcement, but experience taught her that justice wouldn't come unless she delivered it herself. One by one, she neutralized guards, leaving no room for error. By the time she dropped down into the center of the room, the group was cornered. Travis looked up, startled, but quickly masked his surprise with bravado. "Well, if it isn't the homeowner herself," he sneered, stepping forward with an air of false confidence. "You think you can scare me?" Alicia didn't flinch. Her voice was calm, her gaze unwavering. "No, I'm here to stop you." The fight that ensued was brutal. Travis underestimated her, mistaking her silence for weakness. He didn't see the years of training behind her controlled movements, the discipline in every strike. His followers tried to intervene, but Alicia dismantled them with precision, ensuring no one escaped accountability. By the time she stood over Travis, his arrogance had crumbled. Bloodied and breathless, he tried to muster a final shred of defiance, but Alicia wasn't interested in his words. She calmly activated her communicator and delivered an anonymous tip to the police, her voice steady as she provided the location and details of his crimes. Minutes later, the sound of sirens pierced the air. Alicia stepped back into the shadows, watching as the police stormed the warehouse. This time they had no choice but to act. The evidence she'd provided was airtight, and the pressure from the public was impossible to ignore. As Travis was led away in handcuffs, he glanced back at Alicia for the first time, his bravado shattered, his eyes revealing fear and shame. Alicia didn't gloat. Her victory wasn't about humiliation. It was about dismantling the hate he represented. In the days that followed, Alicia's actions ignited a movement. Her bravery inspired others in her community to stand against injustice, and her story became a symbol of resilience. The footage from the warehouse and her earlier encounters went viral, proving that one person's determination could turn the tide. Alicia didn't seek recognition. She didn't want medals or headlines. For her, the victory lay in knowing she had protected her community and shown that even the most entrenched systems of hate could be challenged and defeated. Here on Karma's Twists, we share the most impactful stories of karma and justice that the world needs to see. Don't miss a single moment of good triumphing over evil. Join our community and subscribe. Be part of the movement that believes justice always wins.